interesting personalities, educational and informative topics and issues, intriguing and entertaining. A must listen to. In the Spotlight, Monday nights from 8
She's
p.m.
checking you
on
out.
Q95.
It is 10 minutes moving down past the 8 o'clock hour. First things first, please forgive the huskiness or hoarseness of the voice tonight. You know what time it is in Dominica, so you know what happened to my voice, right? But I could not be here tonight for the In the Spotlight radio show because the guest for tonight's program is actually leaving sometime during the course of this week, and this, for the time being, would that I would have to have him on the In the Spotlight radio show. So for him, I made an exception tonight. I had already announced last week that we would not be here tonight, but I'm making an exception for this gentleman who is joining us on tonight's In the Spotlight radio show. I suspect he'll be doing, well, most of the talking. Well, the guest normally does anyway, but you know, just for tonight, I suspect he'll be doing quite a bit of the talking. Let me use the opportunity to say wrong. The important point is this: we're coming just about a year or 13 months post a devastating hurricane, a major hurricane that caused havoc on our island, and a year later we're here staging this festival and executing it well, in my view. At least in my view, it is my opinion. Others may disagree with me, but again, it will be your opinion as well. But, you know, weighing things, let us be realistic. Let us give Jack his jacket, and in this case, Jacqueline her lipstick, and say the festival was indeed a resounding success in my view, and we can only get better from here. Tonight on the In the Spotlight radio show, you know, I always say to you, we have so many Dominicans, great Dominicans doing great things outside of Dominica, and one happens to be here coming in to celebrate with us our 40th anniversary of independence, and I nabbed him so he could be here on the program and share his amazing story with us, a story of success, a story of a Dominican who is out there and doing great things, still being a Dominican while doing it. And we really have to single out these people. We have to find out what it is they're doing, what it is they're doing right out there. And this is the forum for it, the In the Spotlight radio show. And I'm happy to have a gentleman by the name of Linton Scotland in studios with us tonight. We'll tell you more about him in a while. He will introduce himself in just a while. But let me just acknowledge a few folks. Of course, Q95 for allowing me to be here to do this on a Monday night. I pay the radio station absolutely nothing. I make nothing out of it either. But at the end of the day, you know, it could have cost me a pretty penny to be here on a Monday night. But Sheridan Gregoire ensures that I'm here and I'm able to do this program. And he does not charge me a dime to do it. What we need to probably do is get some sponsors on board so, you know, we can take care of the little things that we need to take care of here and there. We want to say thank you to Josephine Gabriel and company. I'll get my restock soon, Jenny. Good night to you. Want to say thank you to Innovate Multimedia, always willing and able to support us with our graphic needs. The Garraway Hotel, Dominica News Online, always supporting the program, and all of you, all those fans of the program out there who listen religiously on a Monday night. You know, I really thank you. It wouldn't make any sense to be having a program and you have no one, absolutely no one listening. So I'm very, very grateful for the fans and grateful for those who listen or view via social media every Monday night. I know locally quite a few persons may be now catching some rest coming from the weekend, so we understand. You'll catch up the podcast or the live Facebook a little later on, we understand, but I know that we will certainly have a strong diaspora listenership or viewership tonight to the program. So thank you again. Good evening, everyone, and we're looking forward to a great program tonight. It gives me great pleasure now to go across and say good evening to Mr. Linton Scotland, and we're going to find out, what. I'm going to start off by asking you about the weekend.
It was amazing, So I've been coming to Creole Festival from the first
every
year, and so I always look forward to this time of the year. This is actually the time of the year I like to come to Dominica. I've never been to Dominica for during the Calypso Carnival time, because but for me this is the time, and so taking the time this past 2 weeks to be in Dominica, especially around this time, a festive time of the culture, the music, the food, the pageantry, that's for me. Guys, right? So they have the other guys that come in and put shows, but for me there's nothing like your local Dominican bands.
From what you're saying, because you mentioned Signal Band, is it that you came from the beginning every night?
Yes.
You were there from the beginning?
Yes.
To the end?
Yes.
Oh my God. You're better than I am. Mm-hmm. I left at 4 o'clock on Saturday morning. I stayed till the end. I made a daybreak Sunday morning.
What are the things that minimizes customers' experience, and then you can think about how you can that.
So a passing grade for you would be what?
So I said
an A.
It definitely.
So we're on the same page.
Yeah. It was definitely. I mean the talent that you see displayed, and then this is comparable to anything you'd go to elsewhere in the world, right? So and then the setups and everything. I mean, it was fantastic just to see the wealth of talent that we have in not only the musician, but in producing. And my mom is from St. Joseph, and so my mom was a John Charles, so Vanos, John Charles, all of those folks, that's my uncles, and Annette Stedman, that's my aunt, and so that's the part of the family. But then on the Scotland family, which is in Salisbury, my dad is originally from Salisbury.
Okay.
So I grew up in St. Joseph, and went to actually. So I left Dominica when I was 15. So I actually passed common entrance under Calabora, and actually to pass common entrance, I never forgot that I would take Saturday classes with Miss Isaiah Thomas, who was the wife of the former minister Isaiah Thomas.
Background. So I like understanding about your mom, your dad, what they did, the people who brought you, who raised you.
So my mom was, again, a John Charles. She's one of 18 children. Right? But
18 children.
So that was my grandfather, Emmanuel John Charles.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was, it was interesting. I was driving up today, and my mom passed away last year, May. And it was interesting. I gave somebody a ride as we were coming up, and she said, I always remember your mom because your mom used to have Bible classes right behind you guys' house every Friday. And she's the first one who taught me this. So my mom was always into service. And so many years, I would be in New York City, and folks would say, do you remember me? I said, no. I said, I used to come to Bible study class at your mom's house every Friday, and that's what my mom did. And so my mom, again, was she had 7 of us. I'm the second of 7. And my dad migrated to the U.S. Virgin Islands in the 60s. And I studied grammar school, and then in 75, my dad came back to Dominica to study his business. He brought one of the biggest cars I ever saw. It was a Dodge Coronet 440, 8-cylinder car, and a huge car. And then he bought a dump truck. And so he was doing that. And Isaiah Thomas, the minister, said to him, Mr. Scotland, I see you've done well, but what about your children? And what about the education? And that sparked my dad to kind of move to St. Croix, back to St. Croix. And so he went back to St. Croix, and then he sent for us. And then so in 75, all of us moved up to St. Croix, my mom and 7 of us siblings. And so for my first 15 years of my life, I lived in Dominica, and then lived in St. Croix, finished high school in St. Croix, and then from then on to the mainland, U.S. mainland.
How much do you remember about your life in Dominica as a boy growing up?
Quite a lot. So I will say this: my older brother is Ashby, and most people in St. Joseph would not know my name. They'd call me Ashby brother, so that's what I go by. But I was much more quiet. My brother was an outgoing person. He still is. I mean, first of all, we have a great relationship. I love traveling with him. But I would always be in one of three places. My mom was looking for me. I'd be at certain families' homes, two very close friends, or on the savannah playing football.
You like football?
I enjoyed football from the time I was small, and I still play today. Most of the folks that around my age don't play anymore, but I still play.
How often do you play?
I play, so when I'm in the US, I play at least in the summertime. I play for a lot of African guys every Sunday, and then during the week I also play, and then in the wintertime, I try to find indoor soccer to play, but besides that, I do a lot of extensive bike riding and stuff like that. So yeah.
I won't ask you how old you are, but clearly you're doing things to remain young and to keep fit, and that's important.
That's right.
Are you doing it while you're in Dominica?
Yeah. So that's why I said when I came home from the festival, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I came back, got to my house in St. Joseph, and I looked on the savannah, and guys were playing football, and I brought my boots, so I always travel with my boots. And so I decided to go play, and so that's my exercise.
Linton, you go to your bed when you come from festival.
But you see, I need to be really, really tired, so I went to play some soccer, and then after that I went to bed, took a shower, and then crashed.
You crashed. So how long would you crash for?
So I don't really need much sleep. I usually can get 5 hours, and I'm good.
And you're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I can tell you're good. So all you had was 5 hours for today?
Yeah.
Thereabouts?
Yeah, that's usually plenty for me.
Incredible. I got up and slept and got up and slept, and I still want to sleep. Okay, so tell me about your days at the grammar school.
So, coming into grammar school, again, some of the same guys I mentioned, we all studied grammar school together. So, very close friends like Addison Thomas and Popey Fingal, and then David Amo and all those guys. So we all, and Gabriel Christian, we were all in the same class at grammar school. So my focus, when I was in grammar school, I was really, I like chemistry, right? So I pushed myself in that area, and I was into sports, but I wasn't, a great sports man. But I would always do something for my house, right? So I was in Skinner, and so I was, yes.
The last person who was here didn't speak to very highly of Skinner
really?
In terms of their standings.
Back in the day, Skinner ruled the...
in your day?
Yes, that's what I said. Back in the day, in sports competitions, Skinner was pretty good. So,
okay.
So I was in that house, and then I enjoyed my time at grammar school, and because when my family moved to St. Croix, and actually my dad wanted to leave me in Dominica so that I could finish school,
okay.
But I didn't want to be separated from my family, so I went, and then I left grammar school. So I was in the fourth form when I left grammar school. So I didn't sit O levels at that time, they were called.
Yes.
Yeah, but I enjoyed my time in grammar school. These were my formative years, and really enjoyed. So my favorite teacher at that time was Alvin Bully, who we still have a great relationship today, and some of the folks that taught me in school, I still remember them. But Alvin was fantastic to me as a student and as a friend.
In terms of family and family life, you mentioned your mom, teaching Bible school, and your dad. Family life in general, what was family life like? What were those key principles that your family taught you as a boy?
Yes, so I grew up in a very strict family, right? So I think the best compliment somebody said to me is like, boy, they don't make mothers like your mom anymore, And it was, very focused on getting things done and working. So even if we had people that were there helping us, every Saturday we had to do our chores before we could go out and play, right? So
there were rules.
There were rules, and it was one of those things. My mom was a very, very particular person. So I mean, even when we were babies, she wouldn't have anybody hold us until they washed their hands. I mean, she was very like that. And a lot of my siblings have the same characteristics, very from a cleanliness standpoint. So that was it. But growing up, we were, just the normal family. I remember with my grandfather, who was Emmanuel John Charles, he would take us to his estate in car home. And so some of my first cousins, my grandfather would drive around to the different his grandchildren and take them on a Sunday to visit Makushui or Manwachet or Salisbury, or go to have tea with Mr. Whalen in Layu in that place up in the Rolls Estate, right? And so those are things that I recall, and then just going up to car home and being there and in the field. And the neat thing about my grandfather is, so he would plant a banana tree for each of us, the ones that were coming up there, and then when it was harvested, then he'd give us that money. And so those are the things I recall as from my early days with my family in Dominica.
Tell me about your siblings.
So yeah, as I mentioned, my older sibling is Ashby, and
you were the sidekick.
Yeah, I was the sidekick. He's the life of the party, and but he's I was the second of 7. But again, Mom had 4 boys before she had a girl, so she taught us to cook, wash, clean, iron, all of those things, right? So we had to do those things. And so then after me, my first girl was number 5, which was Daisy. So everybody remember the first boy and the first girl, Ashby and Daisy. And then there were 2 others, Gary and Myrtle. And so there was 7. So growing up in a family, I guess part of it was my responsibility to make sure, while my older brother having fun, and I had to be the responsible one, I guess, to a certain extent. And we grew up very close and as a family, and even with Mom and Dad having passed away in the past year, it's been tough, but with fond recollection of the time growing up in Dominica or in St. Croix.
So you're saying your mom and dad both passed last year?
My dad passed 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
In St. Croix, and my mom passed last year.
What do you remember about those experiences, having lost both of your parents within that short space of time?
So the neat thing was, so my dad came up to Delaware and spent for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving turned into 9 months because he had to go through dialysis and all this stuff.
Kidney?
Yes. And at that time, we had owned a company, a renewable energy company, so I had a lot more flexibility with time to spend time with my dad. And so it was very tough, but it was one of the best times I recall because of having been away, and that's the first time we spent so much time together. And so it wasn't an obligation, it was an honor to spend time with him that way. And so that was tough. But the great thing is that 3 weeks before he passed, I visited him in St. Croix. And then I was in Brussels on business. And then I got a call that your dad is very sick. And then I had to leave the trip. I was actually on a European trip from Brussels to Spain and what have you, and I had to cut it short and come down to St. Croix. And then, so when he passed. So
you were there?
Yeah, so I didn't make it in time when he was there, but I was there right after that.
Okay.
So that was very traumatic. And then Mom, again, it was traumatic also because, but the good thing is she lived with my sister Daisy, so I was only 45 minutes from her. And so we'd always spend time, I'd drive down on Saturday. There were like 4 or 5 of us in the area. And so, and my nephew. And so it was good that we had the time together. And so for me, it's just been great memories of what they instilled in us, and a rich heritage, and rich heritage from the standpoint that she was a giving person. Not only what she did in Dominica, but in St. Croix, she was part of the battered women working there. Then she was in Miami. She did some of that. So she's always had a life of service to others, love for family, and service to others. So that's how I would describe my mom.
Before we move to the trip to St. Croix, your community, St. Joseph, what would you say about St. Joseph?
So, St. Joe is an amazing place that I see great potential for even today. When you think of St. Joe and the people it have produced, and so there's some things I have in my head in terms of St. Joe. But you think of one of the things that we don't do as well is honor our legends. So you think of Gramax as how powerful they were. I saw Gramax on TV playing at the Super Bowl when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gramax. So now when you people think of the Super Bowl, Gramax actually was playing at the Super Bowl, right? And so the impact that had.
True story.
Yeah, true story. For the halftime show, it was in Miami, and these guys were playing. I was in college, and I was like, wow, I grew up with these guys. I know these guys, right? So think of that. How many kids know that story?
I don't even. First time I'm hearing of that.
So you think of people like Isaiah Thomas. You think of I would say Baroness Patricia Scotland. She was born right in St. Joseph. The Scotland House is right there, right? There are lots of important people, not important, but I mean, who have made major contributions. Marcus Garvey came to St. Joseph by Ralph Casimir, who was from St. Joseph. So there's a lot of history that people don't have no idea about St. Joseph. But what if you could take that about this person? That's what the African American Museum in the United States that was just built. It tells the history of the African American people in the United States. And it's a powerful symbol, because if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. And so I think in some cases we've lost a lot in St. Joe. The young people have no idea what they can be. So I mean, here am I, a kid that grew up in St. Joseph, mm-hmm. right? And what I've done. Anybody can.
How can you help change that? How can you help change that?
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. It's one is being able to value what we have. Also being able to collaborate with the folks who are on the ground doing it, and then have a vision for what you want. So there are lots of gifters, John, and there are lots of people that bleed St. Joe, I mean, and want to see things. I was talking to one of the Gramax, former Gramax player. He's here right now from Canada, Teapot, right? I mean, bleed St. Joe, want to see something done. But how we collaborated to get it done effectively, and that's one thing. So my older brother Ashby, he actually 2 years ago we started this Clean Up St. Joe. We brought all these materials and employed the young people to go around just cleaning up, and with bags and stuff like that. We paid them and then we also helped them to see the importance of doing that, right? But it was short-lived. How do you start something, and then how do you get it continue, yeah. Right? So there's lots of things that we can do. At the end of the day, I am from St. Joseph. Doesn't matter where I go around the world and what I've accomplished, I'm from St. Joseph. And part of what we're doing is rebuilding our house, so they say, no, that's the Scotland House. That's where they grew up. And so you take pride in that. Yeah, I could build somewhere else, But I want to be right in my village.
So you're building a house?
No, it's my
your
family
parents'
house.
Your family house.
And it's a piece of land that was given to my mom from my grandfather, Emmanuel John Charles. So it's like, no, we're not gonna let it just go. This is the foundation of who we are. So so that's some of the things we're doing.
Okay. So at 15 years old, your dad decided it is time to move to St. Croix, but you said move back to St. Croix at the time.
So my
clarify that for me, and then let's talk about.
So my dad went to the 60s, so I was interested by John Bradshaw, who is here on the island, and he was a big builder, one of the biggest builders in the Virgin Islands from Dominica, and so he in the 60s. And so he encouraged my dad to come up, and my dad would go back and forth. So it was before you had he had a green card to a certain extent, so he could work, he was on a bond first, and then you could work, and then after a certain time you have to leave, right? So he did that for a number of years. Then he had his green card, and then he would go back and forth, right? He worked in St. Croix, then he'd come home, right? And then go back and work. And then eventually he decided, I was just going to stay in St. Croix. So that was the back and forth he was going through. And so while he was in St. Croix, the whole family was in Dominica, right? Okay. And so eventually he moved the whole family to St. Croix.
Okay. And part of that, I presume, as you mentioned earlier on, was centered around the education of his children.
Yes. And so if you think so mom had 7 of us, and there were 5 of us that went to college and did extremely well. 2 that did not go to college have their own business and actually did better than some of us who went to college. So my older brother, he had his own business, a very successful business in Miami. He actually was working with my dad in St. Croix in the business. My dad was into heavy equipment and trucking. Okay. And then he went to Miami, and then he started his own business. And now he's retired, but he's very successful. And another brother I have in St. Croix, who is actually like the number 1 Toyota repair person in St. Croix. But that was like so. Education was always the focus, but also if you choose education, the good thing is like nobody is all 7 of us have done really well. Mm-hmm.
So, if not education, skills would be nurtured.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the move from Dominica to St. Croix. Yeah. What was that like for you in terms of the culture and the experience? A young boy, 15 years old, coming from Dominica, where you probably ran around, had fun, did that kind of thing. What was that life like? What was that change like?
So it was an easy transition because St. Croix is like a melting pot of a lot of the Caribbean islands. So it's like New York, right? Everybody's there. And it was an easier transition from the standpoint that there were a lot of Dominicans there. And so growing up, Sam Raphael and we grew up together, and we're very close. His mom had 7, my mom had 7, and that family, we're very close. So even when you'll get to that, we were in the top 100. Both of us were there. Irvin Raphael, his brother, and myself in the top 100 African Americans in corporate America. But so there were a lot of Dominicans that were in St. Croix. And for us, it was easy because, look, a lot of families that migrate, they might move to New York. And they have to deal with the harsh reality of living in New York or Miami or what have you, or especially Northeast, right? Cold weather, getting acclimated to that. You're minority per se in that culture. But in St. Croix, it's like, although it's American country, it is still the fact that there were a lot of Caribbean people.
So you would have then got into school?
Yeah, so the interesting thing, they thought I was too young to be in the grade that I was supposed to be. So they actually put me in a couple of grades below, and it was the most boring time of life for me. Because when you come from 4th form in grammar school, you're almost ready to, O-levels and graduate and go on to university. So I did a couple extra years, but it was okay because for me it was like being with my family, and I didn't even know that was happening. But it really helped me get acclimated to St. Croix before I moved to the mainland.
Mm-hmm. So you decided then, so by the time you were done with school, the next move was to the mainland.
Yes. So
what part?
So I wanted to do, so as everybody want to be a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. So that was my first thought. And then in 11th grade, I got exposed to like a model chemical plant. And it was like a Hess oil refinery, you know, and they'd show how they bring crude oil in and how we get gasoline and jet fuel and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, this is pretty cool.
You got excited.
I got excited by that. So I remember telling my dad, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to be an engineer. And so I decided to go into chemical engineering. And then so I graduated from St. Croix Central High School and then went on to Ohio. So that, you think about a big transition, right? So going from St. Croix to Dayton, Ohio, to school where it's cold, and the good thing is when you start the first semester, it's in the summertime, so it's not that bad until you get to November, December, it's like getting cold. But so that was a harder transition than moving from Dominica to St. Croix.
We're going to take a break. We're coming right back, and we'll talk about that aspect of your life, university life, college life, and life in the U.S. because I'm suspecting that's where you stayed.
I stayed there for a number of years, yes.
Yeah. All right, keep it locked. We're coming right back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show. If you're just tuning in, yes, it is me. The voice is just a little bit husky. And my guest tonight is Linton, Scotland. And I will tell you, this gentleman is one of the Dominicans out there doing well. He is, in fact, the Chief Procurement Officer at W.L. Gore and Associates. We'll understand more of what that means as we continue with the program. Keep it locked to the In the Spotlight radio show. We're coming back.
In the Spotlight on Q95.
We're still live, huh?
Okay.
We're just,
You
can
can
talk,
talk,
we're just
Somebody said St. Croix is locked in. The man is on point. Bert is the best Toyota mechanic on St. Croix.
Untold stories, touching the human and personal side
Your brother?
Yeah.
in politics, religion,
So people would buy the cars at the Toyota dealership
culture,
and then go
the
to
media, and
Really?
yeah.
getting to know our
Anything.
farmers, public servants, youth, the ordinary Dominican. Listen to their stories. No limitations, no restrictions,
How's it come
no
across?
holds barred.
Nice.
In the spotlight, it's always the spotlight.
Are you bringing out things that made our voice?
I have a bad habit for that.
In the spotlight on Q95.
But you remember everything so
You
well
do.
from back then.
Yeah.
Your memory is very good.
Is it charging?
Buddy.
Huh?
Charging?
Yes, Charlie.
On Q95 FM radio every Monday night from 8 p.m.
He's so prepared.
Yeah.
Said he's so prepared.
Oh. So this is actually, this is so cool. This is like my surface. I can take a lot of notes right on this. And, I don't use a notebook anymore.
Okay.
I just use this.
Okay, I want to do there.
Huh? No, that's not this one. There's a different one for political science.
Okay. No, you were saying you don't use a notebook, but I'm saying, look, you have a notebook right there.
No, yeah, no, but this is for like,
Okay.
In the spotlight, we'll also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations.
So it's like a mouse.
yeah, so
Oh, you got it right.
95 FM
yeah, so I'm
radio
just gonna,
every Monday
Okay,
night
nice.
my to-do list and all the things I have to kind of work on. And when I'm in meetings, that's all I use.
Nice. No, paper is so outdated.
Interesting
You know, like
personalities,
last time, yeah.
educational and informative topics and issues, intriguing and entertaining. A must listen to. In the Spotlight, Monday nights from 8 p.m. on Q95.
At 10 minutes to the hour of 9 o'clock, we are back on the In the Spotlight radio show with Linton, Scotland. If you're just joining us, we thank you for tuning in. We are live via Facebook Live on my page, Kadisha, on the In the Spotlight as well. All right. And we're also live on wiseq95da.com. Check us out there. And I think Sherwin is also streaming on the Q95 page as well. If you're up and not tired after the weekend, we're thankful for taking the moment to join us. Thank you so much. Back to Mr. Scotland, yes. So we were on St. Croix and life in St. Croix and getting ready to head out to university. So tell us about that decision again. You said it started with an interest in engineering, chemical engineering, and you continued from there.
Yes, so I got accepted to several schools, but again, I decided on Dayton, University of Dayton, because when I talked to folks, to people I knew, they said, no, go to Dayton, it's a better school from an engineering perspective. And so I went there, and I tell you, it was really tough, because coming from the Virgin Islands and then going to a predominantly white school, and so it was in a city that I'd never been. And so I tell the story about coming into Dayton the first time and meeting my roommate, my college roommate, who was from no more than about half an hour from Dayton, right? He lived. And then when I went to Dayton, my parents basically put me on the plane and say, okay, we'll see you, right? So nobody ushered me. But again, it was a great time to be independent and to study engineering. It was one of the toughest disciplines to study. They always say chemical engineers are the cream of the crop, but it was a tough discipline and I would say for me it was just hard work, and it wasn't. There's some people who are just naturally brilliant, and there's some people who just, who and that wasn't me. It was more.
You're not naturally brilliant.
No, but nobody outworked me. So that's the difference. So I would work hard, and I would be studying in the library all night, just whatever it is, whatever it took to get there.
How did you adapt though to that new environment?
Well, so the folks in Dayton were very welcoming. And so they recognize, so you think of what I call African Americans, like myself, because I'm black, but they listen and they hear the different accent, right? So they say, wait a minute, he doesn't speak like a black American. There's some accent there. And so, but they were very welcoming. So with my college roommate, when I couldn't go home for Christmas to St. Croix, they said, hey, come stay with us. And so I stayed with them, and even today, Ed Shoemaker and I are the best of friends, and his family and I are very close, right? He and I are very close. So I was felt welcome from that perspective, but again, the studying engineering was tough.
It was tough.
It was tough. But the good thing is, every summer I would go back to St. Croix because you had the Hess Oil, which was there, and you had Martin Marietta. Martin Marietta was the alumina plant, so they would basically take bauxite and then convert it to alumina. And alumina is a white powder, then you process that and you get aluminum, right? So I worked at that plant. My dad worked there at that time, and then they gave jobs to the employees' kids. So every summer I would work in Martin Marietta, and one summer I worked in Colorado for Monsanto. But that gave me some practical experience while doing my studies in college.
All right, so college life overall was tough work, but it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. It was getting acclimated to the culture, and on two cultures, right? the white culture, and the African American culture. So that was pretty tough. But again, it worked out really well, and I always said Dayton was a great choice for me to go to school.
Mm-hmm. So at the end you graduated with?
Yeah, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and then I basically then went back to St. Croix and worked in the alumina plant. And for a short time, it was actually getting ready to shut down, but they wanted me to come back, so I went there. And then I left and then went back to Ohio, and I worked in the automotive industry as a supplier to General Motors. And so I was as a process engineer in a plant there, and spent some time in process engineering. Then went to work for a company called Hercules, which made gunpowder. So actually, I literally know how to make gunpowder.
Careful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked at Hercules for a long time, and then did a lot of engineering. But then I got a sense of quality, and so I actually went back to school and did a master's degree in statistics, because I was focused on the quality side, and then became a quality manager for our plant, one of our plants in Pittsburgh. So I moved from New Jersey, from Ohio to New Jersey, then from New Jersey to Pittsburgh, and I worked there in our Pittsburgh plant as a quality manager. And then from Pittsburgh, then I went to the headquarters, which is in Wilmington. And by then I'd gotten my master's degree in statistics, so I was doing quality work in the quality field. And then I went back to school and then I did an MBA and Master's in Business Administration at the University of Pittsburgh while I was there. And then I got on the sales and marketing side, because as a process engineer, I always wanted to make things, see how things were made. And then I realized the guys who were having all the fun were the sales guys. They would all be out on the golf course playing golf or going out to dinners with the customers, and while I'm in the plant working. And so I want to go on that side. And so I got on the sales side, and I was a sales and marketing director for a joint venture we had with a Japanese company, Hercules Sanyo. So I spent a lot of time in Kyoto, Japan, a lot of time in Kashima, Japan, and in Tokyo, Japan, and then around the world as the sales and marketing director. So I had clients in Brazil, I had clients in all over Europe. And it was one of the fun jobs, really spending time. I enjoy global work, so that worked out really well for a long time.
So I have to ask you, what other language do you speak?
Creole. Not well, but yeah. But even traveling in all these different countries, you learn to, even if you don't speak the language, learn how to communicate. Like where you want to go to, and with signs and pictures and all the stuff. So you learn, and English is still the universal language. So people speak some of that, but I've been in areas like all over China and places where they speak no English, but somehow we find a way to communicate.
You find your way around it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the first degree.
Yeah.
When you graduated with that first degree, it was a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering.
Right.
At the end of that degree, what were you able to do?
So at the end of that, I was able to work as a process engineer. So I could go into plants and then look at ways to improve efficiency of plants. So the first one was the alumina plant, and then the next one was in the automotive industry. So we were actually making products that goes components for cars. So brakes and then door lock assembly. So it was basically those components feed an assembly plant where the cars are manufactured, and that assembly plant, once the cars are manufactured, then they ship out to the dealers and what have you. So being a process engineer is really looking at how we improve the efficiency of a lot of the processes that run through. How we make it faster, how we make it safer, how we make it more throughput, all of those things.
So what would a typical day on the job be like?
A typical day on the job would be to first come in and then see how the plant is running, right? To see, and if it's a 24-hour plant, you kind of look at the results from the night before to see how the plant is running. So you kind of make sure that the plant is running stable. And then what projects you might be working on. For it could be efficiency projects, so we might want to change this piping system or increase the throughput there. So it may be capital projects to identify that and then installing those things. So and then a lot of data analysis to see, okay, the data we get in from the labs, right? Is it consistent? What can we do to improve that? The raw materials that we get in, are they the right quality? Can we shift raw materials to get a better improvement? This kind of thing.
Tell me about any major situation where you helped to achieve that goal of improving efficiency.
Yeah, so it was the time I was making gunpowder, and I was, we had what they call a solvent recovery unit. And solvent recovery is basically you evaporating the solvent and you capturing it. The problem is that the solvent recovery unit was not working well, so we weren't recovering as much solvent, and so we had to buy a lot more. And so my boss basically told me, I want you to camp out there and stay there until this thing is resolved, right? So it's like, okay. And so I basically camped out. I would come in at midnight, I'd come in at all hours to just see how it was working. At the end of the day, this thing was recovering so much solvent that it created another problem for us, because then we were making gunpowder, we were pulling too much solvent out of the powder. But it was one of the things that, and actually when I was leaving that plant, they gave me a tent. And it was like, yeah, remember when we told you to camp out? Now, yeah, you did that. So it was one of the things that really helped improve the efficiency of that solvent recovery. And then getting folks that we actually built a small lab in the solvent recovery area, so they didn't have to take the samples all the way to the main lab. They could do the analysis right there and get the results, and then make adjustments right there. So that worked out really good.
Well done.
Yeah.
And from there, let's go back, because you went through everything quite quickly. I was like, okay, I'm going to stop him in a while. So let's take it back from there. So from that, you went on to?
Yeah, so that work assignment, I was then, that's when, while I was doing that, I got my master's degree in statistics. At Rutgers University in New Jersey. Okay. And so from that, I then went to Pittsburgh, and I was the quality manager and responsible for logistics for the plant, and also the quality manager for that plant. It was one of our biggest hydrocarbon plant, and so we made resins at that plant. And resins are, so toner resins, so when you think of copiers and printers, the stuff in there that makes it stick, it's resin, right? Okay. So we made resins for that, and also resins for adhesives. So you think of the postage notes, right? It has just enough tack, right, that it doesn't stick that much, but it has enough. And so the right formulation to enable that, our resins went into that. And so I was the quality manager for that for a while, for our biggest hydrocarbon plant. And we also at that time had a joint venture with the Japanese company, Hercules Sanyo. And so it was a Sanyo Kasei, which is a Japanese part, and a Hercules part for our plant. We brought those two technologies together, which was solution polymerization and suspension polymerization. Right? So we did that.
In English.
So it's like, if you think of solution, so you think of sugar when you go into water, it dissolves. Yes. So that's solution, right? Suspension, if you put beads in the water, it doesn't dissolve. Suspension.
I see.
Right?
Good.
Right.
I think that clears it up. Yes.
So, but it's different types of polymerization. Okay. And so I was involved in Sanyo Chemicals and Hercules got this joint venture. So I was the person in that joint venture. Okay. One of the people in that joint venture. Okay. And so that's when I spent a lot of time in Japan.
And you were taking care of what for that joint venture?
So I was a sales and marketing director. So I was supplying to Xerox, Toshiba, Minolta, all the big copier companies, and had plants in Brazil, in Spain, in England, and in all around the world that I would have to call on, suppliers customers that I have to call on.
And then you got the Masters after that?
Yes, so while I was, I got the master's right before that because that's when I got the job. But I got the master's degree in statistics. I got it before, but the MBA, it was while I was working in Pittsburgh. I decided to go back to school, and it's
why?
Why?
At that point?
No, I'll tell you why. When I went to Pittsburgh, and I'll say this, as an African American, I was the only person on the leadership team. And there was a senior executive from the headquarters that was coming to the plant. And when he came, and he asked me, what's your background in this area? Where did you go to school? Now, he did not ask that for many of the other people who presented. He only asked it of me. And
that
so
must have been a bit upsetting.
No, it wasn't.
It was not?
Because when I told him, his mouth dropped. See, I told him I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and I have a master's degree in statistics, and he's like, wow.
Now take that.
Whoa. And so where did you go to school? And I said, University of Dayton and Rutgers University. Oh, pretty good schools. Mm-hmm. And so I said to myself, the next time somebody asks me that question when I'm on the business side, I want to drop it to them and then have the same reaction. So that was part of the motivation. It's like, you know what, I'm going to show you. And so that was one of my motivations. So I went back to school because I started to get on the business side with Hercules Sanyo, and I started seeing how decisions were made, and I started seeing where the power lied. And so I was like, hey, I want to get to that spot. And so then I said, you know what, if I have an MBA and I have an engineering background, there'll be nobody who will have the qualifications I have for the next job I go to.
Damn right.
And that's what happened. So when I interviewed for the job, for that sales and marketing director job, it was like, wow. And I make it very difficult for somebody to tell me no. And it was like, no, even though I had never done sales in my life, I put a SWOT analysis together, strengths, opportunities. I put that on myself. And I said, here's the opportunity, here's what I see. Who are the competitors? Other people that are applying for the job. Let me tell you why I'm better than they are, even if I don't know who they are. Right? So I kind of come across that way that I could do this job, and I was given that opportunity. And so that's one of the things that, you have to be very strong in your what you can do, because especially in corporate America, it's sometimes tough being an African American in that space, because you're not always viewed that way. But when folks listen, like, oh wow, we never knew. So,
and you experienced that?
Yeah, I experienced racism all the time.
What was that job like?
Which one?
The one you interviewed for, the sales and marketing one.
Yeah, it was. So I felt that I was the best candidate for the job because I knew the product, I knew the customers, and I knew I had more. My education background was better than anybody else. So when I interviewed for that job, I said, you know what, I'm gonna get it. Then I called a friend of mine who is a ELC member. ELC is the Executive Leadership Council. It's a senior level African Americans in corporate America. So I said, CT, his name is CT Tomlin. I said, CT, I'm going up for this job, but I've never done sales before. He said, Linton, as an African American, you have to sell yourself every day in corporate America. Yes. It's no different than selling a product.
Oh my.
And so that was the best advice I got. And then I went after it, and then I was successful of all the candidates. And even for previous jobs where I was one of 50-something candidates, you have to find a way to distinguish yourself. And actually, I had this stuff that I left on their desk about me, So it wasn't just a resume that was everybody's here resume. It was something that was a graphic thing, and I gave it to them. It's like, wow, okay, this guy is really. And then I had my action plan, what I was going to do, my first 100 days. Here's what I'm going to do. Yeah, put it all together.
Listen, I think many of us can learn from you tonight. Just from that, the fact that you make the point, you have to find a way to distinguish yourself, to be remembered. So when somebody pulls you up, they remember that this gentleman was the gentleman who left a portfolio with information about himself and that kind of thing. So I guess it's about making that first impression and distinguishing yourself from the other 50 people who want your job.
Yeah, you have to be able to distinguish, because so I hire a lot of people, right? Lots of resumes I see. But for me, I'm looking for passion. I'm looking for somebody who really is passionate about the work that they want to do, and then who distinguish themselves and say, wow, this candidate really stood out. If they come in and it's like, well, I'm here, yeah. So you have to command presence. So we talk about Asa Banton, right? He commanded presence on the stage, right? He left an impression. Well, it's the same thing in the other space. You have to leave something that you can say, oh, it wasn't just a normal performance. He actually brought it. And for when you're looking at those opportunities in that space, you have to bring it.
So after this, because this is not where you are now.
No. Many.
So after this, what happened?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time at Hercules, and then when I became the sales and marketing director for that, then I left Hercules and went to NRG. And NRG is the largest independent power producer in the country. And I was doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions with Hercules, and so I got an opportunity. Bob, this gentleman that I knew, who was he became the CFO of NRG, and then I went to have lunch with him, lunched and into a meeting with HR. 2 weeks later, I'm at NRG.
Did you want to move? Were you looking for an opportunity to move?
Yeah, I was really looking for growth, and so I went to NRG as the procurement lead director for NRG. But prior to that, when I was at Hercules, I was the sales, again, not only sales and marketing director for that, but then I switched from sales to procurement. So if you think about it, you buy stuff to make stuff to sell stuff. Right? It's that simple. Yeah. You buy stuff, it's procurement. You make stuff, that's manufacturing. You sell stuff, that's sales. Right? And so for me, I like to buy stuff because I negotiate everything. Right? And having done sales, I know who I'm dealing with because I've been on that side. I've also been in manufacturing, so I know how stuff is made. I know what it should cost. Right? And then so I negotiate everything, and so I was in procurement, and I bought hydrocarbon resins. That was used for making all kinds of things. Over 500 million pounds of polypropylene I bought from Total, BP, all the major companies that were all around the world, and I would have to go negotiate with those folks and say, here's what I want. I can give you this much volume, but this is the pricing I'm looking for. But then I know what it should cost. So I drew some really hard bargains, and that's how we were able to be very successful in some of the things I did. Then I went to NRG, I was doing the same thing. I did things like what they call reverse auction. So you think about auction, where the price goes up, you can do a reverse auction where the price goes down, when people are bidding for that work, right? And so you have it all on the screen, and you could see who is bidding, and then they're driving the prices to where you want it, and then you decide. So we did things like that to enhance our reduce our spend significantly. And so I became the vice president of operational excellence at NRG, and where we drove about cost savings improvement in $400 million a year of annual savings to the company. Now this is one that we have to report every quarter to Wall Street what we were doing. And so the validity of this savings, we had to make sure it wasn't just fluff, right? It was real dollars that we were saving. So I was able to do that, and from there, then I moved into, so I moved faster. I moved into where we own a renewable energy.
So how long you stayed at NRG?
I stayed at NRG for about 5 years.
What, 5 years?
Yeah,
okay.
So my longest stint was with Hercules, and then after that it was shorter. So about 5 years of NRG, and then independent, we actually started a renewable energy company on solar photovoltaic production, engineering, and so did that for a number of years, and then DuPont called me, and
so now you're getting calls.
Yes, yeah. You get a call that, hey, here's an opportunity we would like you to think about, and I went to DuPont. DuPont is one of the largest chemical companies in the world, and they just merged with Dow right now. So Dow DuPont, And that's at that time DuPont was about 40-50 billion dollar company, and then with Dow it was about 180 billion dollars. So a huge company. And so I went there, and I was at DuPont for about 3.5 years, and then I got a call to be in a role like what I am right now. So here's the interesting part, right?
I'm already impressed, huh?
No, so
I'm already blown away.
No, so
I'm just letting you know.
I was making gunpowder, I told you,
Yes.
right?
And I laugh every time you say that.
Then I was making Kevlar.
What is that?
Kevlar is bulletproof protection. That's what the military guys wear.
Aha.
Right?
So you're into the gun business, and now you're into the protection part.
Exactly.
Protecting from the gun business.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So I in procurement, I was responsible for the DuPont protection technology business, which was Kevlar, Tyvek. You see the white, when you think of a Ebola situation that happened in Africa, you see all the yellow suits? This were all,
the protective suits.
Yes, this was all made from Tyvek, which is a polyethylene thing. And then, so you have Tyvek, Kevlar, and Nomex, what the firemen wear, fire protection. That's Nomex. And so those were the main product lines that I was the procurement leader for.
Should I be scared of you?
No, I'm not. So I'll tell you this last story. So my baby sister is Myrtle. She's actually in the Virgin Islands. And I remember when people wanted to date her, I actually had 3 small rockets in my home. That was one that was like a 30mm gun that you fire in a Apache helicopter, and then I had smaller things. So anybody, I said, let me tell you what I do for a living.
I'd be scared.
Yeah,
my sister actually, is involved in procurement. She was asking, did you use meat pricer?
So no, we use Ariba. Software to kind of drive when we were doing reverse auctions.
That's what she said. She did reverse auction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
she was asking if you actually use that software.
Yeah, it was Ariba software, which is now part of SAP software.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think they bought them.
She understands.
Okay. She does. I'm sure there's a lot of people who's understanding out of what is going on. Absolutely. Yeah. So we continue. I must say though, I mean, it's quite impressive where you came from and where you got to and where you are now, and we'll talk about where you are now in a while, but you've been up there in a country where mostly, I mean, we have to say mostly Caucasian people are in those top positions.
That is true, but so I'll go to the Executive Leadership Council. Okay. So the Executive Leadership Council is an organization of senior level African Americans. So when you think of American Express, the head of American Express was Ken Chenault, who was an African American. When you think of Kaiser Permanente, the hospital system, $50 billion company, Bernard Tyson is the head of this. These are all ELC members. So we talk about the head of Ross University, Lisa Waddell. She's African American.
I did not know that.
Yes,
I thought she was Caucasian.
No, she's not. She's African American, and she's one of the only African American CEO of a Fortune 1000 company.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And so we're all members of this organization, so
it sounds like quite an elite organization.
Well, because to get into that organization, you have to have a certain status, right? You have to have a certain level of you either report it to a CEO, or your boss reports to your CEO, or your CEO yourself.
Okay, so say that again.
You either have to be a CEO,
right,
or your boss or you report to the CEO,
right,
or your boss reports to the CEO.
I see.
So this is what they call the C-suite.
Okay.
Executive C-suite. Yeah. So it's the chief executive officer, chief procurement officer, chief financial officer, chief this, is one of the...
And you're a Dominican and you belong to that.
But here's the other neat thing, right?
Yes, we have not spoken about it as yet.
So Irving Raphael, who's Sam Raphael's brother, he's the only African American that's leading a major car company in the United States.
Really?
And Irving and I are both members of ELC.
So he's a member of that
Yeah,
too?
he just became a member last year.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah. And we were both, so again, we grew up in St. Croix, we're both from Dominica, right?
Yes.
And so we're the two people that are in there.
I opened the magazine, Savoy, because we've not spoken yet where you are now, but that's all right. We're heading there. Tell me about Savoy Magazine first.
Yeah, so Savoy Magazine is one of these African American business but social, high-end magazine. So every couple years they put out their top 100 African American, most influential African Americans in corporate America.
Right.
They may also do something that the most influential lawyers, African American lawyers. But this one that they did this in 2018, they did it on the top 100 African American, most influential African Americans in corporate America.
Okay, so let me just read. And there's a page with you, your photo right there. And it says, congratulations to Linton, Scotland, University of Dayton trustee and chief procurement officer at WL Core and Associates, for being named among Savoy Magazine's most influential blacks in corporate America. We celebrate your inspiring vision, achievement, and impact. And I suspect that was put in by the University of Dayton.
Yes.
So they put in an ad in the paper congratulating you.
Yes.
In the magazine.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also a couple in there.
Where do I go? Where do I go again? Right here. Also, Gore also put in something in there, you say?
Yeah.
Let's see where we are in here. This is quite impressive. I'm happy to know you. I'm happy to be interviewing you. Yes, okay, out here.
But see, so University of Dayton did that, but then I think it started with Savoy wanted to do something about the work I do in community impact,
Right.
community service, and it stemmed from my work as a trustee at the University of Dayton. So,
Okay.
I was on the board of the university, and so again, that was for me, having attended there and being a member of the board. I was on the board for 9 years, and so I'm a trustee emeritus right now.
Explain that to us.
So when you finish your service on the board after 3 consecutive terms, you make your trustee emeritus. So
Okay.
I can get back on the board if necessary, but they give you the status as a trustee emeritus. And so it was work I did there, as well as with the Ethos program. So if you remember, and folks might remember, I did some work in Dominica where we brought engineering students into Dominica to help in projects that would help efficiency projects. So we did one on the coconut oil, so that was happening in with Barnes, the folks in Woodford area, where we saw about a 30% improvement in the yield of the coconut oil processing from the work that the students did. And so that was the one I did. And also something that we did with Urban Promise, which is an organization in Wilmington, Delaware, that is after school. Okay, so they did this profile on me, and then the work I did with one of the young men that I knew from high school, which actually I mentored him and tutored him, and now he's actually working on Wall Street now for Morgan Stanley, Ronald Jones. And so they kind of highlighted some of the work that that I did there.
I'm being asked to ask you about when you met Eric Holder.
Yes, so so I met with.
Who is Eric Holder?
So Eric Holder was the Attorney General for the United States. He is actually of Bajan descent, and it was interesting because at the time when Eric was the Attorney General, at the same time Baroness Patricia Scotland, who is from Dominica, was also the Attorney General for the United Kingdom. So here you have 2 black people of Caribbean descent. One is the Attorney General for the United States, and the other one is the Attorney General for the United Kingdom. So Eric was at one of our galas that we had for the ELC gala in Washington D.C., and so we talked about our Caribbean roots and what have you. So you may have seen a picture of me and Eric together. So that's what that was.
Awesome, good stuff.
Yeah.
So again, just to we kind of went around the 100 top 100.
Yeah.
I'm rating that you you received in this magazine. So let us talk about that. How does one get that status, and how did you get into this?
So
tell us what it is.
Yeah, so there's a criteria that they go through, and scanning, across the United States, the African Americans who are, in senior positions, but not only folks but the work that they do. And so part of it was highlighting, as I said, the work that I did in the community. So the ELC, and I was a co-chair of the Community Impact Initiative of the ELC, and we gave away a lot of money to organizations like Inroads, like A Better Chance, like LEAD, and these are organizations that help African American young people who might be academically gifted but economically disadvantaged. And so Ronald Jones was one of those young men that I met in Wilmington, Delaware. He came from a very, very tough neighborhood, but he had a mom and grandmom that was so interested in his development. And so he eventually, we gave him a scholarship to attend one of those LEAD programs. Then he went on to University of Delaware, did fantastic. Then we were able to get him into DuPont when I was there as a summer intern. And the best, actually, for me, what was most gratifying when Ron, he called me and said, Mr. Linton, I need help. I have 3 summer jobs and I have to decide which one. Morgan Stanley wants me to come to New York. Ernst & Young wants me to come to Philadelphia. DuPont wants me to come back. What should I do? And I said, well, you're in finance, right? You got to go to New York. That's where, the heart of it all. And so he went to New York and he did a fantastic job. Before he even finished his internship, Morgan Stanley had a job for him when he graduated the next year. And so he came.
And that's a young man you mentored.
Yeah, so I've known Ronald from the time he was young and in high school, and so just investing some time with him. But he was gifted in a sense, but he had the drive. But no, he was a great young person with great qualities, and so and he was going to go far. So what we did is just help be an extended family to help him see things that where opportunities lie. And I tell you, when he came to the ELC Gala with me, we had people like the CEO of Holland America, which is part of Carnival Cruise, by the way, Orlando Ashford, will say, hey, I want you to come and work for me, right? And the CEO of, so you think about Carnival Cruise, right? We get Carnival here. Mm-hmm. The CEO of Carnival Cruise is an ELC member, Arnold Donald, who's a friend of mine, right? So Arnold Donald was there. I introduced him to Arnold. I introduced him to the CEO of Holland America, which is part of Carnival Cruise. I introduced him to those guys, and they were like, wow, this is pretty impressive, guys. So it's giving those kids an opportunity to be in different environments, because in the society that we live in, sometimes it's very difficult for African American kids to get those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. What did it feel like to be named in the top 100 most influential blacks in corporate America?
It felt good, but yeah, I think it was more for me. It's the history of my family, and I felt proud of the fact that as a Dominican guy that grew up in St. Joe, that's did this, and so if I can do it, others can do it too. It was more from that perspective, and then also my mom and dad would be so proud of it. So I was very reluctant in some cases when the publisher called me and said, Linton, we want to do this. I'm like, yeah. I said, well, what I really want you to focus on is that this community impact stuff. And they say, yeah, but we want to do this. I said, but then for me, it was the inspiration it gave to so many people. And for me, when Irvin Raphael and I were both in the magazine as 2 Dominicans that made it, it's for me, it's a moment of pride, right? And I think I think Irvin is like my little brother, right? And just to see him achieve so much, and I mean, you think about so everybody knows Sam Raphael, right? Who they didn't know is Leroy Raphael, who is the older brother and all of us wanted to be like Leroy. Leroy was a medical doctor. He had his own plane. He was an amazing musician. I mean, Leroy was. We all wanted to be like Leroy.
It was a big deal.
Yes, and Leroy passed away some years ago in a motorcycle accident, and that crushed us. So for us, I mean, and that's why our families are always so close. But amazing family and have done amazingly well in so many ways. So Irvin is like my little brother, and he's doing amazing things, and he's going to do even more amazing things in the future.
And as minute it may seem to others, the mere fact that you are in this magazine, and so is Irvin, and Dominica is referenced.
Yeah.
You are from Dominica, the island of Dominica. That's promoting Dominica as well.
So a couple years ago, we had a picture of Ewart LeBlanc, myself, and a gentleman that went to UWI. He's from St. Kitts. He's the Chief Information Officer for Deloitte, Larry Quinlan. And there were four of us, all West Indians, at this, event. And Ewart is another great guy, right? Ewart was an amazing engineer at Xerox in Rochester. So when I was doing toner resins, Ewart was there, and Ewart is a great friend. And he's the son of the former premier, E.O. LeBlanc, right? And so there are lots of Dominicans who have done amazing things. And so for me, it felt good that, yes, we can achieve on the world stage in all areas, not only in music, but also in various fields. And that's just my story, but there's so many others.
I'm sure. And I hope they, when available, can come here and to share those stories as well, because those stories are quite inspiring and they motivate us.
Well, I think a program like yours is really giving an opportunity for folks to know, right? And again, go back to your history, right? Yeah, most people would not know, but the more they know, the more they can be inspired, right? And so that's why for me, it's in there because so my company did this, and they put out a big, and they have this magazine in the front lobby of the building. I'm like, oh no.
Because they're proud.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no. And so, but yeah, but it inspires a lot of people that they can also achieve the same thing.
Well, congratulations to you and to Mr. Raphael, as well. And I hope at some point I'll have an opportunity to chat with him as well.
He would be a great guy to because so when you see the Super Bowl and you see the Genesis halftime show, that's Irvin.
What?
Yes. When you see the Genesis Open for the golf on TV, that's Irvin Raphael behind all of that stuff.
Wow.
And you can't think of bigger mediums than that. When you think of the Genesis car is the luxury brand of Hyundai. And so Irvin spent lots of time in South Korea, actually, because he's the head of the Genesis line for the United States.
Oh my goodness.
And that's Irvin.
That's Dominica. That's Dominica. That's Dominica. You need to make sure that you give me his contact information.
I will definitely do that.
So whenever he's in Dominica, that we can do this.
We'd love to do that.
We can do this. So at the moment, you are at...
I'm at Gore. So WL Gore is a materials company. And so, some people have heard of Gore-Tex. It's what we call guaranteed to keep you dry. So it's breathable and it's also waterproof. And so we have, this is a company that's about 60 years old. And it's, I hate to say that, I can walk to work, which is quite unusual. But it's a global company. So we have plants in Japan, in China, in Germany, in Scotland. And so I am responsible for the procurement of that company, and then sit on the leadership team for the company. And it's a great company. I wish I brought one of the things that we have. It's actually a very light jacket, but you won't get wet in it. It's guaranteed to keep you dry. And you might see our product goes into this. If you drop it and it's your phones, cell phones, and you drop it and it still works. That's our product that's in there. You will see headlights for cars, right? Back in the day, you'd see it all discolored and water and all this stuff in there. You don't see that anymore. It's venting, and that the stents that people have in them. It's a whole. All of that is our products. It's from a product called PTFE, polytetrafluoroethane, expandable polytetrafluoroethane, and from that one material, thousands of products have been developed, and it's making an impact around the world. So yeah.
Wow. And you are the Chief Procurement Officer for this company.
Yes, so that's my external title. I am more what they call the procurement leader for the company.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're coming right back. It is 9:36. The time is flying by quite quickly tonight. This is the In the Spotlight radio show, and we're on with Linton Scotland, who is the Chief Procurement Officer for WL Gore and Associates. And we're just learning so much about this gentleman. And he's not being selfish about the show being about him tonight, but he's also using the opportunity to talk about other Dominicans as well, that he's aware that are doing similar type work and doing great things, not just for themselves, but for Dominica as well. Keep it locked, we're coming back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show. People are saying they're not seeing your face because of the hat. There you go. I hope.
It's all this gray hair.
Yes, it's all right.
Very distinguished.
It's all right. All right. Somebody just said such a great interview, but there's no light on his face.
They can hear my voice. That's all right.
You don't need a personal assistant? You don't need a personal assistant? And when you didn't give me your email, I sent you my CV.
Actually, I have she handles everything for me. So it's like my whole thing scheduled. That's why I was on the call tonight.
Yes.
I had a 3-hour call with the thing. So all my travel and everything, she takes care of it.
His PA, he was saying.
Yeah, so.
In other words, he doesn't have a job for you.
But you never know. You never know. And actually, I just got her when I came to go, and everybody told me she was really good. But I can
be better.
I have no doubt. I've met you before, so I'm sure you can be.
Like, wake you up with coffee. Good morning, boss.
No, you don't have to do that. You can just make sure that
That's the extra mile I would go. I have to sell myself. I sell myself.
I don't want you to sell yourself. I want you to sell yourself on your skills. Not coffee making. Because
coffee
can do
making
that.
could be a skill.
But it's like there's a lot more things. So even my assistant, I wanted to learn procurement. I wanted to learn some of this stuff. Sure. So it's not just the old days of getting this. Those days are gone.
True.
So I wanted to be so good so she understands.
She can handle stuff for you.
Yeah, she can handle. When I talk procurement, she understands. So she's actually in my meetings. When I have leadership meetings in my team.
You're welcome, Rosalind.
She's in my meeting. Oh. So I have no idea what's going on with
People are
don't worry.
People are enjoying the show. People are amazed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People asking Freddie where she get these gems,
See, so I should
And we are back at 9:38, and I want to use the opportunity. I really thought that just about everybody would be in bed by now, recuperating from the weekend. But it seems we have some people who are up and tuned into the program. Wherever you are tuned in at this time, we're happy to have you. If you would like to call and contribute to the program, our numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. The overseas number is 305-432-9624. We would welcome your calls for Mr. Linton Scotland, our Dominican, who I'm quite impressed and quite happy to know, quite impressed with and happy to know. As I said, I hadn't known much about him, but I hadn't known him at all before, getting him to be part of this program. And that's what I look forward to in this program. It provides me an opportunity for networking, getting to meet new people, getting to know new people, and just getting to help them to share their stories so that it can inspire and motivate us and motivate each other in one way or the other. That's what we're about. If you would like to send a WhatsApp message as well, you can do so via 275-7565. That's 275-7565. As we continue with Linton, Scotland, let's find out what a typical day is. I really want to know what a typical day is like for somebody in a role like yours.
Yeah, so it's an extended day. And because I run a global organization per se, I'm usually up early, so connecting with folks in Europe, and so my days usually start like around 6 o'clock in the morning, and either on the phone with folks in Europe, in Germany, or what have you, because for them it's still early enough, and then throughout the days it's just meetings. So lots of leadership, of executive meetings or team meeting with my teams. And then it extends to the evening, because then I am usually on the phone with folks in China and Japan till about 10, 11 o'clock, and then strategy and what have you. So that's why I say for me, 5 hours is plenty, because by then I usually go to bed by midnight, and then I am up by 5. So, but the day is really spent a lot of times with my teams, and then with the leadership team of the company. And as we kind of right now we're in the middle of what I call our CNC process, which is the contributions and then compensation. So basically deciding what people's raises are going to be, and so going up through each associate and kind of understanding what they contributed to the enterprise. So it's enjoyable. And then in the afternoons, at least I can go play football and hang out, do some exercise, and then.
I was going to ask you, do you play golf?
Yes, I do.
Most seniors do, right?
Well, yeah. So as I say, in sales or in procurement, you either taking somebody out to play golf, or somebody's taking you out to play golf.
I see.
And a lot of deals are made on the golf course. So you spend 4 or 5 hours, and so I'm not as good a golfer as Sam, Raphael, and Irving. I played with these guys in St. Croix in June or May or something like that, and they're pretty good. So, but I enjoy the game, and I do more soccer and then extended bike riding. So I used to do like a 150-mile bike ride. Those are the best kind of things I would do.
All right, so we have quite a few calls coming in here for you. Let's see if we can take some of those. Hello, good evening. Good night to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I appreciate your comment on that, and that's some of the things that we started to do, even with bringing University of Dayton students to Dominica. And so part of it is getting involved in that. I have a passion for my village of St. Joseph, and so one of the things I actually started to do many years ago is in football, right, with the kids. And so invested in uniforms for the kids, or just kind of working with some of the coaches there, right? And I really think it starts with the young people. So what you said, it's actually one of the things that it's on my mind, right? And so I can't divulge more
Right.
about it yet, but I have a passion for and again, it's because you go back to my mom, right? And I think of the fact that many years later people say, oh man, I remember your mom, she did this, right? So that's in me because of my mom. And so I think the aspect of what you said, Carla, is absolutely the things that I think we could do, because we have to uplift our village.
All right. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. We're taking some calls for Linton, Scotland, from St. Joe, a son of the soil, doing very well in corporate America. Is our guest on the In the Spotlight radio show. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I was I've been listening to you from the get-go, from the start. So many things that you have said, I don't even know where to start. But indeed, speak about it. I didn't even know that was a Grandma's faith played at the...
Yes, interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, and quite a bit of humility about it too, quite frankly, if you ask me. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Good evening to you.
A very humility. I never the very cool. The system was run deep. Mr. Vincent and Mr. Joseph, I'm your neighbor there. I will see what the role model is quiet past leaders. Yeah, I'm your. I want to ask you a question. Are you a chemical engineer doctor? Do you have a doctorate? And are you, could you explain to me what is that honorary degree, please?
Yeah, so...
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connor.
So yeah, I'm a chemical engineer. So you can, as a bachelor's degree, you can get in chemical engineering, you can get a master's degree in chemical engineering, you can get a doctorate in chemical engineering. So I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and I have two master's degrees there.
All
but
right.
Yeah.
No doctorate is here.
No.
No plans. It doesn't make sense to you? Not really.
It doesn't.
I think you're where you're supposed to be. Thereabout,
yeah.
right? 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. If you want to touch base with us from outside of Dominica, it's 1-305-432-9624. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Please, your radio or your computer. You know the drill, right? Okay, go ahead.
This is the program, and I find it very fascinating. But the thing is, this Scotland, you never mention your parents then.
Yeah, so my parents were Cressy and Sham in Scotland.
You did mention at the
I
beginning.
did.
He did. You may have missed it.
Okay.
Oh.
And what's your name, sir? Okay. Okay, yes. Okay. Yes. Oh, wow. Well, nice talking to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, wow. Family all around.
Thank you for your contribution. All right. Thank you. Good night to you as well. All right. So we will take a couple of more calls. Hello. Good evening.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so an honorary doctorate degree is where a university might decide to honor certain individuals and they give them that degree. So being on the board of trustees for the University of Dayton, we did give, we give honorary degrees to certain people. Like, so Charlie, I can't remember who we gave them to, but it's usually either prominent people or, that doesn't give you a doctorate. So let's be clear, right? An honorary doctorate degree doesn't mean that you have studied and become gotten a PhD, as I say. But the fact is, you're recognized for a certain thing on university. So, like Nelson Mandela, right, had over 17 honorary doctorate degrees or more from various universities around the world. And I visited in South Africa, and in his home, you could see some of those things were all there. So that's normal.
Good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, good evening.
Good night.
He said he's your neighbor in Salisbury.
My neighbor in Salisbury, okay? Yes, go ahead.
Oh my goodness. Just remember when you're calling to lower the volume of your radio so it could make it much easier for you to get through and for clarity that we can hear you properly and you in turn can hear us properly on the program. So you visited Nelson Mandela's home?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so one of my brothers, Gary, actually lived in South Africa, and so I got a chance to visit him in South Africa and in Johannesburg, and that's where Nelson Mandela was from. And then also I had a chance to go to Cape Town, and actually part of the John Charles family, my cousin is also in Johannesburg, Irvin Pascal, the other IP.
The other IP.
Yeah, and then got a chance to visit Zimbabwe, and so I did some visits over in Africa.
Mm-hmm. And part of your other travels have taken you to quite a few other interesting places.
Yeah, so it was interesting as I traveled around the world, and my colleagues would always say, "Listen, you have family all around the world," and we actually it was interesting. We were in Italy doing a due diligence. We were actually looking to buy this company when I was in Hercules, and so after that, I actually went up to see my cousin in Milan, which is Uncle Vano's daughter, Wendy, and so we had the John Charles family, the Scotland family. We have family around the world. So I had family in South Africa and in Holland and in England, and so everywhere I go, I would always find where my family is and spend some time with them.
Mm-hmm. All right, it is already 7 minutes to the hour of 10 o'clock, and we promised that we were not going to go overtime tonight because the people who need to close are tired. Even Linton needs to eat, so we're just going to take this final call and then we begin to wind down the program. Good evening. Good evening.
That's correct, yes. Milo just was my grandfather. Okay. Wow. Got it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucille. You were not at festival, Lucille, you're not tired. She's gone. Okay, she's gone. Linton, Scotland. I'm happy to know you. I'm happy to have met you. And I'm happy that you listen to the program when you can. I mean, considering the kind of schedule that you have, I'm surprised you even get a chance to listen.
Well, I try to listen to, your program actually, I like to listen to stories of people, right? And so when you have, and I think I remember listening to the one you had last week with Pearl.
Yes.
And it was kind of interesting just to know.
Yeah.
So for me, I liked reading biographies of people, and then so always what made them who they are.
Yes. And we're understanding quite very well what made you who you are tonight, and what you have achieved. And we should be very proud of you as a Dominican, for where you sit. I mean, look the way you are. You know, it may not seem like a big deal to you because I see a great deal of humility from your end. But to us, you know, as Dominicans, to me, sitting here having this conversation with you tonight, is quite impressive. My sister Gail, I always mention Gail because she's always my biggest cheerleader. She's been my biggest cheerleader from this when I started this program. She did some research on you for me. You know, I was actually talking to her when, you know, I saw some communication and I asked her to do some research for me because I was quite busy and so on. And she said, yes, Fufa, you need to have him. She was actually in procurement. She's in procurement as well. Yes, at Mount Sinai. Yes, I'm going to link you up with her actually.
Please do. I'm always looking for good procurement people too.
Yeah, you might want her. You know, you might want her. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm hiring quite a few people.
Good stuff. So it really was indeed a pleasure having you here tonight. And as I said, you know, even with the Dominicans that you know out there, link them up with me. Let them know that there is a forum that we want to know about them and what they're doing for themselves and for Dominica by extension. Because when you ask where you're from, you don't say the United States.
I'm Dominican.
You're Dominican. You was born on the beautiful island of Dominica.
Absolutely.
So that is important to me, you know, as host of this program, in bringing across these stories of our Dominicans who are out there. So please feel free. We will be in touch, you know, to share with me anyone. I have your number. I have his number. Don't try to get it from me when I do, you know, that kind of thing. But I want to give you the opportunity to leave us with some final remarks about the journey. Where do you go from there? And overall, you know, just your island home, Dominica. You know, how do you feel about your island? What's to come even in terms of your island, all of that good stuff?
Yeah. So, you know, it's... Dominica, it gave me and made me who I am. In a sense, my roots, my foundation came from Dominica. And so I speak of the people like Caleb Laurent and Miss Isaiah Thomas and Alwyn Bully. And these were people that were so strong. And then they talk about the community of St. Joseph, right? The Somerset Cricket Club and the things that we had. This made me who I am. As I grew up and I saw more and more, I took more and more of the opportunities that were ahead of me. But for me, it's that it can be done by our people. And so I bleed for the people, the young people, because for me they're the future. And so I enjoy this time of festival while we're here, but I want us to think about beyond the festival. So the question I asked, 40 years after independence, where are we? Have we made the type of progress we should as a society? That's a question, fundamental question. It has nothing to do with anything else but that. And are we progressing? And if we want to be in you know, on the world stage, how it's about customer experience, how clean, and you'll hear about that. For me, it is so important because we have a gem, and how are we taking care of that gem? And then the greatest what Dominica have more than anything else, it's the land, but it's its people. And the people are everywhere. So it's whether it's people in Dominica, but in the diaspora, right? The greatest asset is those people. And so how are we utilizing those assets? We can think of how we utilize the assets on the ground, but how are we utilizing the assets that are our people? So having traveled to China and then India and all those places, and Singapore, they find ways to use their assets for the benefit of the country. So you find, lots of Chinese students studying at University of Dayton. Why? Then with these American companies that are setting up in China, these are the students that have learned the American corporate system, that when they go back, they lead those companies, right? And so we have a lot that we have been able to learn, right? So Go is almost a $4 billion company, right? I was looking at DuPont, which is a $36 billion company. So being able to handle, those things, we can give the same type of knowledge and understanding to our country. So when I was at DuPont, it was $1.5 billion of spend that I had responsibility for. So the budget of Dominica, if you think about it, that's less than the spend that I would have.
Wow.
And that's just me. That's one, right? And so there are many other people. And you have to kind of know what to do when you're dealing with major corporations, how you negotiate, how you ask for this and how you command things, and how you negotiate on the world stage. Well, everything is you make stuff, you buy, you buy stuff to make stuff to sell stuff. And whether it's a product or service, that's what you do. And so the same skills are transferable in all sectors of the society to improve efficiency. So for me, I want to be one that helps, right? There's a great here, but if you put that together with what's out there, what I mean by that is if you take these talents that we have internally in Dominica, and then the talents we have outside, and we pull that together in a collaborative manner, how powerful that can be. So I say to a lot, even when I'm in the United States, right, I say there's a lot that African Americans, I say the real African Americans can learn from people of color outside, because we come into America and we're successful. But there's also a lot that we can learn from them because of the struggles that they went through in the 60s and the civil rights movement. We can come in and be successful, right? And it's the same, but we have to work together. I can't say, oh, these people that came from other countries, they're successful. Well, the same thing we can have to say here, be here. We got to work together, not against each other, because it's our country to develop. It's our place to be what it should be, and we can only do that if we work collaboratively. So I don't, I'm neutral. I am only focused on development for the country. And most people want to know, I just had a meeting with Dominic. After the hurricane last year, and it's public knowledge now, we got a 1 megawatt generation unit sent to the country. Through contacts and say, here's what we need, and we have that right now. And those kind of things can come like that because
you were into power generation before.
But you have to know who. I didn't ask, I want to buy this. I said, I want it. And I said, anything for you, we'll do it. And then so we got that unit from California to change it to Caribbean standards, ship it to St. Louis, then to Miami, and then in Dominica. Those things. It's the connections and that you have that can enable those things, but not for yourself, it's for the country. So for me, when I see we can utilize our assets and our people on both, we got a lot of good people here, but we have to be willing to learn from what's outside, and us on the outside have to be willing to learn from what's here.
That's right.
And I think if we can do that, we can be successful. So on this 40th anniversary of independence, my hope and my focus is that how can we work effectively, collaboratively, in a collaborative way to develop the country.
I'm happy that I made the effort tonight to do this program with Mr. Scotland. I think that just knowing that there are Dominicans out there doing the type of work that he's doing, thinking of Dominica as well, doing what he can to help Dominica and his childhood village, St. Joseph, West Coast. All we have to do is continue networking with people like Mr. Scotland, keep them close to home, and make the best use of their successes, their achievements, and the people, companies that they know that can help us. We thank him for his contribution tonight, and we wish him well at W.L. Gore and Associates. I have a strong feeling that at some point he's going to tell me, oh, Miss Frampton, I'm somewhere else now. Maybe, right? Who knows? Thank you so much, Mr. Scotland.
Thank you for having me, and it was really a pleasure. You know, you didn't ask me one question.
Tell me.
And it's like, you know, so my wife is actually from Dominica.
Oh my goodness, I usually do that.
I know.
I told you, I'm still a little, she knows, I'm a little out of sorts. No, but I didn't pay attention. No,
but,
pay attention to that.
Yeah, so my wife is from La Plaine. And so, yeah, so I know she must be watching, so.
Oh my, yes, good night, Mrs. Scotland. Yeah. You have kids?
No, just myself.
Just the two of you. All right, Mrs. Scotland, we didn't intentionally not ask about you, okay? All right, that's a wrap on the In the Spotlight radio show for tonight. Thanks again to Mr. Linton Scotland for joining us for the program. God willing, is next week Monday a holiday?
No.
Isn't it? It is.
Is it?
Next week Monday is a holiday, so I will be taking my holiday next week Monday, all right? Definitely this time. So hopefully, God willing, we will be here the following Monday. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for listening to the program. Do enjoy the rest of the independent season. Those of you who are in Dominica or on Dominica for that, it's our 40th anniversary. Let's make the most of it. Come out for the National Parade, Cultural Gala, or at the Cadasslip. So, you know, there's quite a few other things happening. Come out for that, okay? Until next time, thank you, Khadisha, for being here tonight, assisting with the program.
Great job.
Yes. And thank you, everyone else who contributed. Thank you to the callers. And thank you to all the supporters of the program. Good night.